HiSec Buyback offers a 90% JITA anywhere in HiSec. Simply go to hisec.evebuyback.com, appraise your items, create a contract, and get paid quickly.
Good evening, welcome to Talking Stations. I am DomanarK, your host tonight with Shen, and our man behind the curtain is Artimus. Welcome, guys.
How you doing today, guys?
I'm doing real good. We're going to have a good show tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun. Some kind of cool announcements from CCP. We'll start right off the bat with that. GM Week. Unfortunately, I've not taken part in this, but from what I've read, it looks like a lot of fun. And it's something that, the way it sounds, that the GMs all like have fun doing it. The players who do take part in it have a good time in it. The schedule of events is pretty amazing, really. Everything from the Magic School Bus giving out free stuff, CTP giving out, or the gyms giving out free stuff, skin transfers for different things. There's a, what's that called? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Scavenger hunt going on all week long. That's, things like that. If you're into that type of stuff, that's very, very cool, right? If you're not, it's not hurting anybody. This is the kind of event that is fun and has no detriment to the game at all, right? And that's a good thing for CCP to do something like this. It's just the least amount of contention, the best, right? Because there's a lot of things that have a lot of contention in this game. It's just kind of fun stuff where both nullsec, or not both, nullsec, lowsec, highsec, wormhole players can have fun doing this, right? It's just it's kind of cool.
So at the time of recording, it's currently September 21st, the evening of September 21st over here in the US. So you've probably already missed the Wack-a-Bot, and we'll go over some of the results from that fun event. That was the one I was personally most looking forward to. But then also they announced they've got a GM and ISD roam, so they'll be roaming around with Bjorn B as their FC, a very popular EVE streamer. If you've never flown with him before, it's a super fun time. That'll be happening on September 23rd at 1800. Then there's a week-long scavenger event. I think this took both you and me by surprise, DomanarK, where it's like 24/7 all week long. There's this scavenger hunt thing happening.
And I just couldn't get my mind around that, right? I was like, oh, it's got to be like dates and times, but it's not. Yeah,
Nope. It's crazy. Like, they're just cans spread throughout New Eden. And I guess CCP's Twitter is tweeting out images of them on occasion from specific locations, like giving hints as to where they may be. And it's just
hints,
whoever.
They're not telling you where it's at.
Hints.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
This isn't a race. This
cool,
is a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
So that's super cool.
Like that. It is. I like that aspect of it because that makes it. I don't know. It just makes it fun. But here's the question I've got for it, and we missed the whack-a-mole thing. Was that a situation where players weren't supposed to be attacking each other, or did that happen? What were the results of the whack-a-mole?
Oh, I mean, in HiSec anything goes. Like, there's Concord there, and they'll certainly try to prevent players from attacking each other. But whenever you have a massive group of players together, there's going to be explosions. Hey, Hateless, thanks for the raid. Hateless, also another fantastic EVE streamer. Y'all should check out if you have the opportunity. But with this, the concept of Wack-a-Bot is that CCP their security team will identify some bots who are in particularly expensive ships, such as carriers, super carriers, titans, and then teleport them to ULI, which is the Concord capital system, to be summarily executed by the player base. And so this time around, it was a lot fewer ships, which some may find disappointing, but as a person who didn't actually shoot these ships and instead was just having fun watching bots get destroyed, that tells me there are a lot fewer super capital bots around in the game nowadays, and I'm happy with that. But essentially they get...
a positive thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They get teleported into HiSec, they get given a suspect flag so that anybody can engage them, and then the players just go nuts. So you can see 1,182 players managed to get on this Titan kill mail. Of course, the loot's there, right? So whenever these ships die, drop loot, people can loot. So that's always fun. And it's just a big event with lots of players all trying to get their fair share, and some people are up to no good, as always in the EVE Online universe.
that not that I would do something like that. Yeah, it'd be up to no good. But I'm upset that I missed this event. The last time there was a big player event was that I had anything to do with was the MER Coronation. I thought it'd be really fun to go out there and smart bomb it. Other people did.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Instant -10.
Well, I think the interesting part of this one is people came in damage ships to try and get top DPS, and we should give a shout out to I Gonna Kill You for getting the top damage on this particular avatar kill. But I remember we had some members of our staff who are incursion runners, and the focus for the incursion just happened to be super close to Uli, and so they burned over. And with incursion ships, they are very expensive, so they made a choice: do I bring my super high DPS bling officer fit, or do I bling a tank fit? And so you can see a lot of the ships here, they aren't easily smart bombable, but I guarantee, other than the smart bomb or the bombers maybe, but I guarantee you there's going to be a ton of these which probably were hyper bling fit and got a target painted on their backs from people ship scanning and looking to gank them.
Now they're being hunted, yeah. And would you say bling fit? And these ships are crazy bling fit.
Oh yeah,
like, and just things normal people would not fly for any reason. I mean, only incursion, right? And these guys they're a tight knit group, and they're very effective. They know, it's at what they do. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things. That situation is one of the few places you can spend money and it really do get a bang for your buck, right? If you fly a ship like that in no sec, low sec, or anything like that in normal combat, you're not going to get the results of that money spent or that ISK spent. I mean, you get it. You know what I mean? It just is not as effective. So. And
indeed.
I will say I missed the school bus. Mike Gazarai is one of my favorite people in the game. I love the guy. I think what he does is not unique, but he's kind of the main. He's the one that kind of spearheads all that. That helping out, not being part of CCP, but helping out new players. And this Magic School Bus thing, he's been doing it for years, where he goes around just gives away ships to newer players to help them out. It's just such a fantastic thing. I'm glad that he was part of this. And then, like you said, we're going to be the Rome, and that'll be a stream. But also announced, in conjunction with this GM's Week, we have a schedule of CCP TV stream. And this looks really awesome. It's called Schools in Session, CCP on their TV, their CCP TV channel. It's a Twitch channel, so it just is that, exactly what we said. So we're starting off with the school bus, so we missed that one there. But tonight we'll be Talking Stations Carneros. We'll be doing his normal Tuesday night chill, Carneros and Chill stream on CCP TV, and he just kind of gives it, answers questions, gives advice from a very knowledgeable position to anybody who wants to talk to him and ask questions. Sometimes people go there and act like jerks. Sometimes they don't. But of anybody out there, he is awesome at handling stuff like that. He's one of those calm voices. He's a great guy to watch stream. If you don't normally watch other streams or anything, that's a good one to check out. He does a great job.
Yeah, like there are kinds of streams where you want to grab a few beers or grab some whiskey or whatever and sit down to watch those. And then there are the Carnero streams where you just want to grab a bottle of wine and sit down to watch that one. It's a different vibe, but it's a phenomenal vibe. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. And he'll actually be coming back again. He's appearing twice in their schedule. 1900 on Sunday. So about an hour or so after our normal Sunday show ends, he's going to be doing another Returning Players Reorientation stream. He's done a few of these so far. The last one he did was a smash hit. Everybody loved it. Lots of new info. Even for me, like a veteran player, there were things and mechanics and tweaks and changes that had happened over the years that either I had forgotten existed, or it was fun just remembering that these changes happened and going through in my mind thinking, what was everybody saying when these changes were first announced? How are people thinking the Sino changes were going to impact the game? How are people thinking the nullification changes were going to impact the game? And then look where we are now. So definitely something to recommend to your returning EVE players. Like if you've got somebody who's thinking about coming back or who has come back recently, have them tune in. But it's still fun for us veteran players just to reminisce a bit.
It gives you an opportunity because he does a good job of painting the picture, right? I know when I watched it, I was like, I remember what I thought of those changes at the time. Well, actually, his stream when he did it made me remember what I thought of those things, and then what I think of them now. And most of them, I'm night and day different opinion on them. Right? Yeah, everybody's knee-jerk reaction to the announcement of the change. Change happens. Complain. Then, oh, wait a minute, this kind of works. It's. And once again, he's a great resource for stuff like that. He's just fantastic.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of. I'll be fair. He's my CEO, so I mean, I talk good.
Okay, so DomanarK's a little biased. Shen,
Little
how
bit
about
biased.
you? Have you engaged with any of this content?
No, I think at least for the Wack-a-Bot, I was busy with real life, so I wasn't there. But uh, I think for the future ones, if it's on time, then I would definitely try to do some of that. I mean, and the special thing about this kind of event type of stuff is you only get them like once a year or a few times a year sometimes. So it's kind of rare. So I mean, you can crab anytime, but this only happens once a while. So just give it a try.
Absolutely.
It's also something different in Eve, right? Everybody's always complaining about, there's nothing to do in Eve. Well, this is something to do in Eve that's different than your normal stuff. That's a good thing, right?
And shoot, half this stuff is being streamed on CCP's Twitch, so keep doing your ratting or your mining, whatever, and just watch whatever other people are doing. Like, you could do both. It's great.
There may be a stream that's actually literally talking about what you're doing at the time, right? So, I mean, it's the one on this schedule. We'll link the schedule so you can look at it. I won't read it to you and bore you, but I am kind of looking forward to the Abyssal Patrol with CC Paragon and Ice Cream. That's something that I don't know much about that stuff, so I didn't really take part in it, and I'm looking forward to that stream because that stuff's interesting to me, even though I didn't take part in it. It's just I'm looking forward to that one. It's gonna be fun one, I think.
Yeah, definitely some fun to look forward to.
So we I guess we can talk about the MER. The MER just came out for September. What month are we in? No, August.
August, yeah, it's the August one.
August. Me personally, no surprises at all. I honestly, I don't think there's ever any surprises. Good information, interesting information. But I think what I think is interesting and important, I guarantee, is not what Shen thinks is interesting and important.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, well, Shen, what's interesting and important to you?
I mean, one thing is the velocity of ISK and the index for both mining and final production. So usually we see like a giant gap between mining and production. I think we're still seeing it right now, but hopefully it's going to come back to similar places.
The ones for me, the MER, the information I most enjoy looking at is the destruction. I just because I'm PvP focused, don't do a lot of industry stuff. I understand that's important information, but it really doesn't pertain to my gameplay. But the amount of destruction does, and it just boggles the mind about how much destruction there is actually out in this game on a monthly basis. When wars going on, when not wars going on, still billions, if not trillions, total of destruction. And I think that really, to me, that speaks volumes to how much fun this game is, right? I understand that I always tell people the game's very, very boring with, frenzied, little bits of frenzied activity or, heart-pounding activity, but a lot of dull, not dull is probably the wrong word, slow is like just frenzied activity. And that report really doesn't portray it that way, right? There's obviously activity all the time somewhere in the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to not see it that way when you live in one system. Or, I don't know what goes on in low sec really because I don't go there. I don't know what goes on in high sec because I don't go there. That's, you got to remember that there are stuff going on there. Yeah, it's a pretty dynamic game, based on that report.
Yeah, I think personally it's great to see when you're looking at both production and destruction numbers. Back in July, we were at a lull for both of them, like a local minimum, maybe even a global minimum from the reporting period of this MER. for both destruction and production. And we started to see sort of early mid-July was an inflection point for that one, and it started going back up. For production, with all of the changes to like Mercoxit and ice and stuff like that, we're starting to see, as we transition into the end of scarcity, that's still on the rise. But destruction, we saw a spike in late July, early August from the destruction of all of the Pappy infrastructure in Delve and that general area, but then that started to taper off again. And so I'm personally curious to see next month when we see the September numbers, how does this destruction trend continue? Is it going to bounce back up once all of these cheaper ships get out into the wild and so people are more willing to fly them and lose them? Or are we going to just see less activity because it's too safe to fly your ships in space and so nobody's dying? We'll have to find out. I know there are quite a few people in chat who are talking about Delve topping the charts everywhere. What chart should I look at to see where Delve is supposed to be?
Okay, so I'll just say before we move on to away from this map, this graph, things we have to remember. There's a big economic boost, like a temporary one by CCP. Remember the injection of ISK, about like I think 226 million, something like that, each player, right? For that, I think 1 week in July, something like that. So if we see that at the end of the graph, from July to August, there's a small uptick, right? And from August to September, there's the uptick continues. So I will read the July to August one will be the effect from CCP's money injected to the game, but from August to September, that's really the recovery from the war. So the war announcement also is a key timeline, which is August 2nd. So that's a time when Pappy announced their retreat from Delve. So they're going to move back home, either to do farming or do whatever they want. So they're going to move out of Delve. Therefore, more people can go back home and to focus on their production, either mining, either ratting, or produce stuff. So that's why we're seeing like a uptake back to the higher places that we saw before, like giant dip.
Okay, and so now let's take a look and see where are people going to do that right ratting and mining. So we're looking at total mining value by region in August 2021. The Forge historically is a very large one. That's where Jita is. A lot of people mine around there. Domain, that's where Amar is located. Veil of the Silent is an interesting one. It's number 1 at the top of the charts in terms of mining for August. And it is just
right?
Fraternity, yep, dwarfing everyone.
This is telling, in my opinion. I think this is very telling because before the war, Delve ruled that category, ruled the PV, the NPC kills, and the mining kills. Well, now that things are shifting the other direction of the war, you'll notice the mining or the NPC kills, Delve, bam, right back on top. Not so much in the mining, and I think that's very telling, based on the changes that CCP made to mining, right? People aren't jumping right back into mining because it's not as lucrative as it was. It's harder to do, because you really can't use Rorks for normal mining. It doesn't make sense to. I think that's. I mean, Frat's been able to continue doing it because they've been safer for a while. But a group of was known to be a big mining group isn't all of a sudden right back on top again. I think that's telling for like what scarcity has done to a player base that's known for mining and ratting.
Some of the members in our chat are mentioning that moons still weren't properly popped yet and out for this take of the thing. So let's walk through the mechanics of that a little bit because it is slightly confusing. What are the different sources of ore that you mine in nullsec? You've got your belts, which are effectively gone, right?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so then you
don't mine belts. I mean, the way I understand it, I'm not a miner, so I'm probably saying this wrong, but I don't think you mine belts. People don't, right? Anomalies based on your ADMs, your industry factor. The higher that is, the better belts you get, and they pop. I don't think it affects their time, but it affects the size of them. That's used to be the lion's share of your minerals. I think it still is, but that's been decreased. It's been very, very hit. Then you have the moons, because now when you frack the moons, you mine it like you do it's not the same material, but you mine it like you would an anomaly. So that's a good point. The fracs been able to do their fracs. That's going to make a big difference, and we haven't had those yet.
I mean, I guess my biggest question is in terms of volume of ore. Well, two questions. Number one, are moonfracs really giving that much volume compared to the volume you get out of everyday anomalies? Like, are we talking volume on the same scale? Not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah, it's just the moon material only.
And that was going to be my second question, right? So there is value in moon ore because it produces the materials you need for T2 production. We talked about that a lot more in Abby and Ren did a fantastic show on reactions. You should go check out.
That demand has increased.
Oh yeah, especially as Morphite is more abundant, I would expect the demand for moon materials is going to go higher because fewer or cheaper components going in to pair, like more Morphite is available, let me put it that way, to pair with your moon material. But in terms of impact on the economy, if you look at the volume of ore that is mined, moon ore being mined means something completely different than regular ore being mined, especially when you look higher up into the chain at are you producing super caps, are you producing capitals, are you producing subcaps that they're used for different things. So I think if we're going to be using the argument of moons aren't spun up yet, first of all, I don't think it's a problem that Delve is so low in this because Delve was not reconquered at the start of August. Delve started getting reconquered at the start of August. They didn't have a full month worth of production here. Fraternity had a full month worth of production here. But also, I don't think moons are making up 2/3 of a region's ore value. Maybe I'm wrong there. Like, certainly if you have some insights here in the chat, you've got some Alliance mining ledger that you can tell us about, like, let me know. But moons are certainly not making up a trillion worth of volume.
The graph isn't in volume. It's in ISK. Right?
Oh, it's in value. I'm an idiot. So, you are completely correct, yes. So moons would totally make that up.
Yeah, because the value is they're way more valuable, right? Or yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah, our 64 is really, really valuable nowadays. So and also another thing you have to think about is the cycle that moon drill takes. So sometimes moon drill can take up to, I think, a month or half month of time to pop a moon chunk, and that maybe, let's say, Imperium started to put their Athenors down midway through August, right? Then their moon should be just popping right now, or just a week before now. So there's going to be a lag between when they start to do moon mining and when the moon chunks are actually being mined, let's say by Rorquals, by Hawk, or whatever ships.
And this was the question I asked. So I don't do this, right? But I asked the question. So we throw these Athenors down. So do we do a 10-day poll so people can get on it right away? Or do we go ahead and do a longer poll? And I was told that the shorter polls are exponentially worse than just waiting and getting that better. Like the longer you wait, the more you get it. It scales to the time, the way I understand it. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
That's one thing. And also, I think the moon chunks, so each rock is bigger as well, which is really, really good for Rorquals. For Rorquals, I'll explain this, I think, right now. So for Rorquals, what you want is one big ore rock, right? Just sitting there, floating space. The best case scenario is all the ores in a belt become one rock and just sit right beside the rock with your excavator mining drones out and mining them. So what this is one extreme scenario. The other extreme scenario is they split to 1,000 pieces of rocks floating in the same area, right? The problem with that is that you have to travel. So with Rorquals, when you're mining, you have something called industrial core on. That gives you the boost to both the yield and the command burst strength. So what you don't want to do is traveling a lot, right? You don't want to turn on, turn off the module because it's a 5-minute cycle, right? So let's say if you cleared your vicinity, let's say 10 kilometers of all the ores, that means now you have to travel with a Rorqual slow boat that for 10 kilometers, and then to get to the next few pieces of ore chunks, which is really, really bad, which is really slow down your mining efficiency.
Yeah, somebody told me when it comes to mining with Rorks, movement equals negative ISK. If you have to move, you're losing money. That's what I was told. Yeah, that's both the excavators themselves and the Rourke. The more they have to travel, the less you're getting, right? So if you have a bunch of little small ones, like you said, you have to move a bunch of times. Super inefficient. You have excavators that are killing rocks before they're even full. Because they still will come back once that rock dies. If you're not Johnny on the spot, which I'm not, they might be traveling all the time. But so that made sense to me. But I did ask the question: would we want to do a quick poll just to get people going? And I was told emphatically no, we don't want to do that.
Well, I think it also depends on what your goals are. So if you, as an example, I know Brave set up there a few short polls because if you just moved, right, so you're coming from all you have is liquid ISK, you need to get materials. And the only way to get those materials is either to haul them in, which includes the cost of buying them from somebody else, or to mine them yourself. So if you're starting from scratch, you may want to do a few short polls just to get your industry up and running so you have those materials to tide you over for the long poll. But if you are in Delve and you've been in Delve for years and you've got those stockpiles all in one DQ, you don't have to worry about that. You've got the minerals you need to tide you over, and you can work with waiting on the longer poll.
Or if you're mining for income only, if you're not mining for production, right? Then I'll wait because I'm just going to sell it anyway. But like you said, if I got to build ships now, I need that material. I need it now.
So just to correct, the max for moon pool is 56 days. So that's more than a month, almost 2 month time, right? So that'll be like a lot of moon chunks. Also, one reason why people may want to do shorter polls than the max 56 days is that moon chunks or the moon wars only exist for, I think, 48 to 72 hours, right? So if you can't mine all of the moon chunks in that time, that means you're wasting a lot of money because the structures, the modules, right? The service modules all takes fuel, which is
right. If you don't get them done, they disappear.
Yeah.
So if you have 56 or 55-day poll and you don't have the mining fleet to clear it in the allotted time, that's way more. That's worse than inefficient, right? That's really bad. So I know that I don't remember ever seeing 55-day polls on our list. I'll look at it every once in a while. I don't do it just to see it. 30 days, a lot of those. But maybe there were 55 days. I don't remember them.
Well, that's my question on the 55-day polls. If we're doing those, are we expecting to see a month of really high mining value and then a month of really low mining value and then really high? Because there's a full month's worth of time in between those polls. So if we are doing the max 55, we would expect to see fluctuation month to month of mining value because all the polls are synced now. All of them were restarted at roughly the same time.
You couldn't do the first one that way. You're right. You'd have to do like half of them. If you were going to do the 55, you have to do half of them 30, half of them 55. So you have a continuous flow. And you really can only do that if you've got enough available moons to spread them out. Because you don't want to have all of them pop on one weekend, right? If you have 25 moons, 55-day polls pop all at the same time, that's going to take a hell of a fucking mining fleet to clear all that, right? So you want to spread them out, have so many pop on each day or whatever in different time zones and whatnot, so everybody gets a chance at it. But I would say the more you have available to you, that's got to affect your decision on how long you pull, right? You just can't have an entire region worth of moons polling 55 days pop at the same time because you're gonna lose most of that probably. Now, maybe not the Imperium. I know that there are a lot of miners there. I don't know. Maybe they can handle something like that. I don't know the answer to that. But
yeah, we've got some interesting points brought up in chat that I want to run through real quick. On the note of things being synced, they're bringing up that there are thousands of moons in an entire region, which brings to mind that, Test was trying to set up to live there. So they had to destroy all the Athenors, then anchor their own, then start the moon poll. So just naturally through that process, there's going to be some fluctuation and variation as they get through those over time. And it also seems like they have just staggered them intentionally to a certain extent. Looking at the shorter moon polls, just going back to that real quick, it was also brought up that if you're trying to raise your mining index for the purposes of ADMs or for spawning the higher value mining anoms, then you'll want to do shorter moon poles because that gives you the ore to mine to raise your index. So if you're starting out in a system with low ADMs, low mining index, you're going to have really, really bad mining anoms. So you do a few short poles on your moon drill. Now you've got a bunch of moon ore mined, and it starts spawning those regular ore anoms that you can mine until the longer moon chunk goes through.
Well,
Great points there.
Absolutely. Yep. Because if you don't mine, it goes down. So if you're waiting, a month, you do all your bunch of mining, you have to wait 2 months. You may not have enough going on to keep that. I don't know, but that indice up there. It has to be continuous work. If you don't mine, it goes down, right? You have to be working it to keep it up. I do know that because we fight them. I have to fight with people to go make them do it.
Yeah, oh man, I remember.
And also, like,
that's a fucking complicated shit, isn't it? If you really look at it, maybe I kind of see why people like to mine because they like the maskets. Maybe they like to just push themselves to the stress limit. I don't know.
also you have to remember, like, there are different. You mentioned there are thousands of moons in a region, but only a handful of them is actually worth the time, I would say, because you have to consider there's a cost associated with anchoring Athenor, needing the core, fuel it for a month, and then put up the surface modules on, right, the moon drill. All of those cost money, right? If the resulting war chunks is not worth whatever the cost is, then it's not really worth the time, right? So usually R64 and R32 are really worth the time, but everything else below is kind of not.
Okay, I'm gonna step out on a limb here, and I might get myself screwed over. But I did the math when I was setting up my moons in my wormhole, and they're all R4s, right? So theoretically the lowest value, although I think maybe R8s are the lowest value now. And using ISK per hour to check how much you get, if you're munching on moon ore, you're making more ISK per hour than if you're munching on all the regular ore other than, I believe it was Crocite and Arknor. You're still doing better than Bistot even. And now, obviously, all of that will fluctuate over time, but if you're munching on even R4 ore, that's like you're munching on ABC ore. So that's, if you have all of these Athenors pulling that ore to be used, there's the cost of the fuel, but even bearing in mind the cost of the fuel, it's still worth it for me personally to mine an R4. I have to imagine it's worth it for a larger industrial complex which is able to extract more value out of the ore that they mine to do even R4s and R8s, especially now that R4s have the use in capital and battleship construction parts.
Exactly. Okay. Before R4, it really didn't have much use. Now all those materials have a place, right? Everything's needed now. So again, that was a good point, Shen. Though I agree, you have to find that point. If you're losing money out, if you're losing ISK doing it, you don't do it, right? So you don't maybe don't put an Athenor on the weakest of the moons in your system. That makes sense. I can see that. But you'll have to have it on some of them because you do need the atmospheric gases and you do need the silicates. And those things are used. That's a good point. I don't know.
Yeah, and also I guess another part of that is don't overburn your people, right? So I think even though if you have a lot of miners, they're gonna get tired one day, I would say. So maybe just, I guess, give them a break. So don't put all those R4 or R16, I guess, all of them off.
Nope, miners mine. Get your butts out there and mine. I'm teasing.
All right, let's move on from mining. I think we've belabored the point enough. What other graphs do we want to hit? Let's look at ratting. We mentioned it a little bit earlier.
So with ratting, you have Delve and is it Vale, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are neck and neck. So Delve went right back to where it was. Frat stayed up there. I think even before the war, they were still neck and neck in that area, right? I think Delve was a little higher, but they're right back up in there. That's why I was thinking. To me, it was showing that, well, I'm not going to go mine yet because it's because of scarcity, but I'll rat, right? And I think that shows that graph shows that.
You see, I have another point to make with that one, which is the index in Delve is much higher compared to Vale. So this is total NPC bounties. That means it taking into consideration of the index, right? it's the index in Delph is about,
What
like, I don't know,
what are you referring
150%.
to by index there, Shen?
Security.
Bounty risk index, because Delph has been glanced over once and then twice, right? So there are tons of destructions, structures, ships everywhere,
Forgot
right?
about that.
T5Z is 200%, 1DQ 200%, right? When Veil has 75% on average, I would say, okay, this is just estimate. It has to be below
Fail.
100.
Fail's probably below 100 for sure, right?
Yeah.
Because
So and then you have and you have Delph, like, I don't know, 150% plus, I would imagine, for average, right? So
several systems 180%. So yeah, no, you're right.
yeah, you see big differences there, and that will make a huge difference with a lot of writing in.
So September's will be interesting to see, because we'll probably see an increase in increasing in the amount of people doing the ratting, but I bet you see a decrease in the amount of value of it, because we'll have worked it back down to probably at least at even.
Well, you also, I guess talking September numbers, that works, but I'm thinking towards Quadrant 4 when we get those capital mining or the capital ratting anoms. Like, what's going to happen then?
But everybody gets them, right? So
yeah, but who's going to take more advantage of it?
Oh, Delve and Fail and wherever maybe Horde's at, Brave's at. People who are big. They're really the ones that are going to be able to take advantage of that. To be fair, I mean, that's just true.
I feel like Delph and, let's say, Horde will take more advantage of that compared to Veil, because Veil is way too close to low sec systems. So they can literally undock 5-10 dreads in low sec system, NPC station, jump right to Veil, and then boom, there's your super, right? So I mean, with Delph, there is NPC Delph, but generally speaking, is much safer, right? The Imperium base have full control over that, right?
Because the umbrella.
Well, I mean,
it's important, right? It makes a difference having that and not having that.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, let's talk about it then. Let's talk about the umbrella and its success, because this was brought up pre-show, and I'm like, if we talk about it, we're gonna have to actually dig into the numbers here, because everybody's always going nuts about how Test is losing their Rorquals. But I guarantee you, if I export these kills to a spreadsheet, like, Test is not losing anywhere near as many Rorquals as the Imperium, which, number one, that's because Test is an alliance. The Imperium is a coalition across multiple regions, so let's check ourselves there. But also, just Delve is such a large target. People know that if you go into Delve, you're going to find targets to go after, and they're not going to necessarily dock up because there's the hubris there in their umbrella, and people have infrastructure there from when they did this during Rorquals Online. I think that the Imperium's umbrella may be the strongest. I don't know how I would define strongest in these terms, but they also have the largest target, so it makes their life really difficult.
And the umbrella does not cover all of the Imperium space, but our own members forget that, right? It's a very specific area, very defined. If you're a ratter or a miner using capitals, you should know that definition, because it's information that's available to you, right? If you're outside that, there's zero chance of saving you. They're not even going to try, because you're outside the umbrella. So all that would do is risk a whole bunch more assets, right, to do that. So I think the people who run our umbrella, they're very good at it. I really, my is anecdotal evidence. Just the other day, Rourke was tackled, called for help. They called for people to come in and do it. And within 2 minutes, the fleet was together, undocked, and almost already there to where the Rourke was. And this was not really a good time zone for the end of the European time zone, but before the U.S. time zone. So that 85 people showed up in 2 minutes. For one Rourke, I was flabbergasted. I didn't expect this to be to that point yet already. Before the war, a lot of people just sat in a chat together, and they are the ones that responded to a lot of stuff, right? But if you have 100 people in that chat all the time, like just bullshitting and doing their thing, and that's going on. I mean, it happens right now, but I don't think it's gotten back to the level of it was pre-war. I was impressed, very, very impressed by the response. Maybe it's not typical yet, but we're getting there. I say that we responded with speed and confidence. I mean, not only did we save the Rourke, we chased the group out as far until it got to the point where we weren't going to catch them, so we turned around over that. But
And from the perspective of someone who's not under any given umbrella, what I'm personally happy to see is that Rorks are dying everywhere. It's not just only the places with particularly targeted, like anti-super whaling fleets like Delve, historically was the example, are dying. They're also dying in Outer Passage. They're also dying in Immensity. They're also dying in Vale. Like, it's possible to effectively kill Rorquals again underneath any super capital umbrella, which I am personally very happy to see.
Well, there's always that. There's always the line, right? If I have this many of any ship, I can take out that ship, right? That formula exists on all levels, right? And the fact of the matter is, the people who hunt us know that they know what that line is. They know how many they need to do it quickly. We know how many we need to do it quickly. I mean, it's not like we're all new at this, right? And a lot of the groups that hunt us are able to bring those numbers. And you're right. They can kill them fast enough. If we're not right there, you're not saving it. You know, it's just a fact, yeah. Especially if you're one. Anytime you're solo mining in a Rourke, I really think that's kind of silly, but a lot of people do it. I mean,
Also, with Kikimoras, now I think it's one of the more popular whaling ships right now. It's really effective through wormholes, through Thera holes, through whatever kind of wormhole that people can get through. Because Kikimoras can travel through like the smallest wormhole, so you can get basically to anywhere you want.
and the damage output of those things are amazing, right? They just are. I mean, because
Exactly.
it was bombers before, right? That was kind of the go-to easy kill if you're going to kill a big capital. Bunch of bombers can do it, yeah, but torp bombers can do it. But I think Kikis, they don't have to warp off when the saviors show up, you know, because they're fast. You know, they can continue to fight for at least a little bit, or choose to engage the people coming to save it. You know, where bombers couldn't. If you're not attacking a large target, you don't project damage on you know, a bomber versus a harpy fleet. Going to lose, right? Harpies versus a Kiki fleet, even numbers. That's probably Kiki's going to win that. You know, it just depends on how they're FC'd and piloted, of course. I mean, that's just a thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are also that rapid light servers, which is really scary to Kiki.
I really do enjoy the Kikis. That was a great addition to the game. I know a lot of people complain about it because they are very powerful, but there's a trade-off on those. I think they did a good job of finding a balance where it's a fun ship to fly, it's a powerful ship to fly, but not overpowered. And people would argue that, but I don't think they're overpowered.
Alrighty, I pulled up total production. I don't really have much to say about this. I think this is just what everyone expected, especially back during mid-August where you had two entire coalitions in Delve producing stuff for the war, and then the Forge, which is always just top dog in terms of production. Do we have anything else we want to check out?
I guess
no one ever takes over the Forge, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
have
think
to go back in time.
I think it's very interesting. One chart, one of the graphs on there, I find interesting is the production versus destruction, like you're talking about. It's never exceeded, right? The destruction has never exceeded production. Yeah, on the time over the time. Even when we have all these massive fights, we lose shit tons of ships. Production still beats it every time. So yes, I think until the destruction can beat the production, that's why you need scarcity. I'll agree with CCP with it. That chart there shows the reason why you do need to adjust somehow if you don't want just a massive accumulation of wealth continuing forever, right? It's even with scarcity, still outproducing destruction in the middle of a war. So yeah.
Yep. And especially like when you look at where we were back in 2019, we were 3 to 4 times the level of production that you had the level of destruction. Now you're like 2.5. Much more manageable.
And there's a few spikes in there where it got real close to each other, right? But on the average, it's still, I mean, clearly way more production than destruction.
I forgot when I first pulled this up. Massive shout out to CCP Larrikin for putting the data together, I guess. But then also Dunk Dinkle, who took all of the graphs from the MER and put them into a spreadsheet format, or a PowerPoint format, excuse me, so that we can more easily jump through them. Because they look pretty in the dev blog, but they're a pain in the butt to dig through.
Yes, they are. People can talk smack all they want about Dunk. Dunk's a great guy.
Yeah. Also, we can look at the import and export graph. I think that one is also interesting. Because we had a lot of stuff move through different regions. That's why you see spikes everywhere.
So help us, how do we read this graph?
So red is export, I think, and blue is import.
And
so
then the
import
darker shading is that...
coming into. I don't know the dark ones, but like I remember like the so import is stuff going into the region, and export stuff coming out of the region.
Okay. I think the dark is like what the net effect is. So if somebody has more imports than exports, you have the dark that amount in the import direction. Whereas somebody has more exports than imports, it's the dark in that direction. So the Forge, as an example, lots of people produce stuff in the Forge, it gets sold on the market and then taken to another region. So you've got massive bars on both sides in terms of stuff coming into market, stuff going out of market, but the net effect is a certain amount of exports. Stuff is leaving the Forge. Interestingly, Delve also in that area, even in July. Lots of stuff leaving Delve. I know in the July, or sorry, this was August, which makes sense actually. Less interesting because a whole coalition was evacuating. So you'd want to see lots of stuff leaving. Outer Passage, lots of stuff leaving as well. So that could have been the previous residents of Outer Passage exporting all of their assets from Outer Passage to wherever their new home was going to be. Same thing with a lot of, again, those southwestern regions that were being evacuated by Legacy Coalition. You have Providence, which was sort of, I guess, Dreadbomb moving out, Fountain, Esoteria, Outer Passage. Like, these we expected to see. I'm wondering where everything was going to. Omist had a massive amount of imports. It's almost entirely total imports. So the ISK came and it stayed there. Who's living in Omist now? Is this Fireco space?
It's our space technically.
Oh, it's you, Shen.
So it was,
yeah, but we moved out.
You moved into it, right? You didn't kick anybody out. You just moved in, right?
No, it's okay. Omist was our old home before we moved into Esoteria. But after we moved into Esoteria, I don't really remember what's going on with Omist because like we kind of just left it there. Like I don't know if anyone is actually living in there, to be honest.
Because it's Omist, I get it. But
okay,
I mean, if you look at the graph, like it's one of the like most useless region, to be honest. If it doesn't exist, nobody's gonna know because you can go directly from Faith of Ballas to Tenerife. So Omist is kind of just like extra add-on to that.
We just discussed how being far away from Empire space is a benefit in terms of making ISK. I think that's exactly why people want to live there. Come on, Shen.
I mean, that is a good point, I would say, but also it's also one of the smallest regions too. Like if you look at the map.
Also fantastic from a super capital perspective. You can get everything under one umbrella. It's almost as if people thought about where they were living.
Yeah, but when the alliance goes too big compared to the size of their land, it's time to move out.
Right on.
It really only has one constellation that's any good, right? For making ISK. Right? It just has the one constellation that's good for ratting. They've got lots of moons, but not a lot of valuable moons. So I mean, that's a tough. I think Omist is a tough place to make a lot of ISK. You're not going to get rich there. But you had a situation where no one was living there. No one left. You guys just you put your stuff in. And, you didn't kick anybody out of there because you already owned it.
Fair enough. Any other points you wanted to make on the imports and exports region?
Yeah, I think with Providence and all that stuff, I think part of that is test moving through that region a lot of times. Because if you look at the retreat map, I think they moved from Carneros, one of the low-sec regions, and Providence and Catch. So that's their line of extraction, at least with capitals. I don't know how sap capital and like super capitals go.
I would
Yeah,
agree with
it's
you,
Provi.
except it's a net export, so stuff had to be in Provi at the start of August and then not in Provi at the end of August for it to end up as a net export, right?
Okay, then that sparks a really interesting theory, which is in July, a lot of test leaders they already knew this, and they put a lot of stuff already into Providence. And then when the extraction finally announced, they quickly moved the stuff through.
Okay, well,
And
let's test this.
because this is only because that thing announced on the early of August, so it can happen like at any time, right? It can be like midway through August. That was announced to their leaders, and then these leaders start to grab.
Yeah, so if
And I
this
think-
is correct, if your idea, if this idea is correct, we should see a lot of imports, so a massive net import into Providence in July. So I've pulled up the July MER, and I'm trying to find Providence in here. It's much smaller, so there's a whole lot less of both imports and exports, but it's balanced. So whatever came in
Severance
also
left.
went out. So
Severance pulled out of Provi.
yeah, so this is in August. It's not people moved in July. We would have seen that in the MER in July where people were pre-staging stuff for an evacuation. It's just somebody moved out of Providence in August.
Everyone does. I mean, you go there, you realize, oh crap, this place sucks, and then you leave. Right? I lived there for a long time. I know it's a terrible place. It's like, yeah, I'm a very, very, very successful farmer. I'm gonna move to New Mexico. That sounds like a great place, beautiful place. You go there, like, oh shit, I can't do anything here. I gotta leave. You know, it's like, not being fair to Provi, probably, but yeah, I probably am actually. Tough region. It's a tough region to make a lot of ISK in. You got that, icky CVA juice everywhere.
But it is Sencha space, and you do get like a lot of nice loot with Sencha and all those modules that. Oh,
Yeah,
and Sencha like
the high sec though. That's what's one good thing about Provi. Yeah, 2 places.
yeah
You get
yeah.
high sec. That's a good thing. Yeah, that's one good thing it has.
Yeah, so it has the two, I think, direct connection between nullsec directly to highsec. So there's no lowsec involved,
I know
which means that
KDP.
if you have full control of that nullsec system, you're 100% safe if you're in that coalition or in that alliance.
I never use 100% safe because
Well,
nullsec's not.
let's say 99%. Yeah, let's
high sec, but it's not safe. Yeah.
Yeah, let's not say 100% safe, but it's very, very safe compared to other systems that you have to go through low sec, which has a chance of people camping there.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm so glad they do these monthly MERs. I know it's probably boring to some people to read it or to hear about it, but this is a good way to prove it's dying. No, it's not. Look at the fucking MER, you jackass.
I do want to look up, when did the taxes get reduced? Was that
At the exact same time that CV pump out those 14 billion in total or something like that.
Yeah, but
You talking about the thing
timing
that
wise,
really
was
had
it
no effect on anything?
start of
Yeah, I
July,
think put in
start of
trillion or something.
August? When was it?
It's mid-July, I think. That's what I remember.
Because what I want to see is what impact did they have on fees and such.
Wait, fees. So if you can go to MER, there's actually a section for that.
Yeah, so I want to know at what time should we have seen the impact of this tax reduction?
So
Would we have
if you
seen
just
it
pull
in?
one up, you just pull one up. No, like So this one. No, wait, not this one. I think the other one is similar. This one. Yeah. So if you just zoom in at the very end, so you see that giant red spike. That's the redeemed ISK token. So that's the thing that basically that's the amount of money that's been put into the game in July, I think. Yeah. So that's what we saw last time. And then you see there's a giant dip in transaction time, happened almost at the exact same spot. So that's when the transaction tax got reduced to half.
Oh, I see.
Because
So
for the bottom half, like the closer to the middle line, closer to the axis, the smaller it is.
And just to help me understand, and anybody else in the audience who hasn't looked at this graph very much, zero line means no ISK is flowing in or out of the economy. If it's above the line, it means ISK is going into the EVE economy. If it's below the line, it means ISK is going out of the EVE economy, known as a sink. stuff coming in as a faucet, stuff going out as a sink. So looks like asset safety tax. I love seeing this big old dip where the evacuation happens from Delve and suddenly everybody's got to asset safety their stuff. So we see a massive async pumped up there. But then what, Shen, you were calling out was the transaction tax, which I guess is this bottom brown line. There's a massive spike up towards the origin line, which means that there was a reduction in the amount of transaction tax being used. That's really cool.
Yeah, without you also see like a dip with broker's fee. So broker's fee used to be higher than LP store, but right now it's lower. And so with asset safety, there's a delay as well. So if you remember, asset safety is, I think, 28 days. You put into the structure, you put that stuff into asset safety, it's 28 days coming out. So you have to assume that 28 days before that spike, a lot of people put their stuff into it. Or just another thing is called people pulling their stuff out at the same time. So maybe this asset safety thing happened 2 months ago or half a year ago, and now they're just pulling it all together out of that low sec system.
Yeah, it could have been people who were in Legacy Coalition. They were in the midst of a war, their home regions were getting burned, so their stuff went into asset safety, and they weren't quite confident enough in their new home space of Delve and Queria, so they didn't want to pull it out yet to move it in. But now that they know, hey, we're moving back to Outer Passage or to Geminate or wherever they happen to land, that's where they know to move to. Could also have been people in the Imperium who had stuff going to asset safety from the losses in Delve, and they didn't pull it out yet because they hadn't reconquered their space or chosen a new home to go to. And once the war was officially over, quote unquote, then they knew, okay, I can pull it back out and move back in.
I think you see the rise, the rise in the asset safety recovery tax starts at about May, right? That's where the rise starts. So about June, the writing's on the wall. I honestly, I know everybody says it was that last second thing. It wasn't. I started pulling stuff out of asset safety in June because I thought, okay, we're not going to lose this. I get things that I got thrown there. I think back out.
I think he got that flipped. So asset safety was actually like almost its lowest in this entirety of the graph in June, July area. People only started pulling out mid-July, and then a big spike really hit as we started getting into August. It's a bit difficult to see the lines on this thing. Yeah.
I started pulling mine up about that same time. Before that final fight, it's like, well, okay, we're not going anywhere. It'd be just, you could tell it wasn't going to happen. So I started pulling out, but it's probably right at that same time that line dips. That's about when I started doing it too. So, but I think you'll see another dip there though, because like you said, not everyone's done it. Because I know in my corp alone, probably 4 of us have gotten all of our stuff out of asset safety, but most people have not. And I know a couple of our guys that they're super industrialists have billions and billions of ISK they got to pull out over the crap that they got to get out of asset safety, right? And they haven't done it yet. So you'll see more dips. And then, like you said, as test loss keep star or tag loss keep stars structures, not everybody, those weren't empty. They weren't. There's just no way because people go AFK, something happens. There was stuff in those that went to asset safety, so you're going to see another dip when they get their stuff or recover their stuff. So or who knows when that'll be because that's going to be in enemy territory now, or close to enemy territory anyway.
Some things I noticed while looking at this, corporate reward payout for Triglavian invasions, that's been a really steady climb. It's the highest it's ever been right now, so we're thinking like running world arcs and stuff like that. Also, bounty prizes, as we talked about before, the super capital umbrellas are going back up. People are back in their space ratting, so that had a massive spike. Highest it's been since, what would have been fall, the ESS bounty prizes. So since the ESS came in, it's the highest it's ever been. One interesting thing that I'm looking at is incursions. We don't see the sync for incursions going up dramatically since like the Marauder changes, which I would have thought with the amount of ISK they're making nowadays, we talked about it a bit last week, you'd think you'd see a spike, but I guess fewer people are running incursions than previous because they have other valuable options to be involved in.
There's not new people running incursions. It's the same.
Yeah.
That's what, there's no new players into it. So you see a steady climb, and that's what you should expect in those Marauder changes. Because it's the same people using them. They're just going to, it's not going to see all of a sudden all of the Bastions going to go run incursions in Marauders. That's just not a thing because if you don't know what you're doing, you lose a lot of ISK. You got to know what you're doing in those, and I think that line shows that there. The Triglavian payout thing, as you see it trending up there, I wonder if that's when they finally got it dialed in with the standings. That's when you started seeing it go up because it was so hard for people to get in there and do anything
Oh,
because
yeah.
of the standing issues. So I wonder if that's when that happened. I don't know. But that's I would speculate that's probably something to do.
Yeah, I think part of that is also I think Hateless doing his fleet, his public fleet in known space to clear out to leave NPCs in known space. So I mean,
Like
technically,
I
I think
don't
called
think
Empire space. Yeah.
like he definitely pulls hundreds of billions of ISK out of those, but I don't think the high sec ones are included here, specifically because it's called corporate reward payout, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. But when you run incursions and when you run world arcs, you get ISK directly into your wallet, and so I think that's what this is measuring. What the payout that you got from the high sec stuff that Hateless did was a lot of loot. So you'd get the red loot that you could go and sell to NPC buy orders, you'd get the production materials for making Triglavian ships, but you wouldn't get a significant amount of ISK straight to your wallet like you do with incursions or world arcs. So I think you're right, Hateless is definitely contributing somewhere, but I don't think it's captured in this graph specifically, because it's not that kind of ISK that he's, or that kind of value that he's extracting.
Interesting. Okay.
Or it can be like the component or the commodity, right? You see up top the dark blue line. I think that may be the part that he's contributing, right? You see there's uptick there as well. So I mean, this is I think the time we see bounty getting up close again with commodity, right? So we saw that giant dip first time in Blackout, so way back, and we see that again in ESS update, and now we're seeing going back up. So I mean, part of that is so there's giant dip. One of the reasons is it really nerfs non-sec routing, and part of that I think is also the way that they calculate the MER. Because technically, so if you go to your wallet and if you do any non-sec routing, you see two sections of your ISK coming in. One part is called bounty, direct bounty. One is in miscellaneous, which is called the ESS. So there are two sections. I don't know if that's all included in this graph or they're doing it separately.
Yeah, it looks like they say that specifically bounty prizes includes the ESS auto payments, so they are both together in the pink line.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then see that one.
So,
yeah, then it's all together.
This graph illustrates something that a lot of people were frustrated. I was also frustrated by this. We have important to get scarcity out there. We're gonna it's gotta happen, and then they give us a shit ton of ISK. With that they maybe shouldn't include that line on there because this proves what everybody was saying, right? Why are you taking all the shit away? But then you give us a whole bunch of ISK. I didn't realize it'd be that high. Trillions. That when they did all those reward stuff, that's crazy. That's a bad decision right there. That was a bad decision. We can't. I want to take away ISK, take away ISK, take away value, take away. Oh, here, have some ISK.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the money supply, right? So that massive spike happened July, August, right? And it's just raw ISK. But when you put it in the context of the total ISK available to active characters, July to August, we're seeing a dip. That's a local minimum. So even though CCP handed out literally trillions worth of raw ISK, there is just so much ISK in the EVE economy from the years of abundance that it doesn't make a dent.
You're right. Financially, it doesn't make a dent. Messaging is where it makes it. That's where it's at. That for me, that's in the messaging of it. We want to decrease. Bam! Here's a bunch of free ISK. That's just I don't know that. In my opinion, during this time of scarcity, stick to the message, right? Stick to that thing. Maybe after the fourth quarter when it was supposedly this was going to end, maybe that would have been the time to do something like this, right? Just to me, messaging is super important. Anytime you're making adjustments to people's livelihoods, I put that in quotes, but that's the way a lot of people look at this, right? This is.
Yeah, I mean, this is partially what worries me, is if you look at where we are right now in terms of the size of the EVE economy, the money supply available, we are where we were back in spring of 2019. So this was after all of the ISK has been injected and realized from all of the abundance activities. That's where we are again now. Now, a lot of things have changed with the way stuff is manufactured, and there are many different factors going into it. But I mean, look at this spike that happens just when a war ends, production jumps up. This is the largest spike on this graph, quite literally, other than when alphas were first introduced. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, but here you have to take into the consideration that scarcity happened while this big war was on, right? So scarcity, I think, happened half year before the war started, and now the war was there with scarcity. So we don't know how the world gonna look like without war, but only scarcity, or with war but no scarcity, right? So they're together. So we can blame one or the other, but it's very hard to say which one contributed more to the growth or the decline of certain activity.
And to be fair, scarcity isn't about ISK; it's about assets, right? That's really what it was about. It's not about the total amount of ISK. ISK is affected, obviously, but it is about those stockpiles. That's what So that's not really fair of me to say that that's directly negative against their campaign, but messaging wise, it is right. They're throwing out mix. To me, that's a mixed message, and that you gotta. I think you should avoid things like that if you're doing something like this. But you're right. In the grand scheme of things, drop in the bucket, right? Because you're looking at actual total amount of ISK in the game. It's in quadrillions, right? So 3 trillion is literally chump change. When you're talking 13 quadrillion ISK of wealth in the game now. That's.
Yep. Now, there are some economic indices that are quite frankly beyond my understanding, like in terms of consumer price index, producer price index. I'm not even sure what MPI stands for. I guess it's up here, mineral price index. People who know what they're talking about can tell you a lot of very interesting things from this graph. I am not one of those people.
I missed that economist that used to work for CCP. The genius economist. He worked for him. It helped run the economy and make sure it worked out well. While he was running things, they literally made textbooks about it that they taught it in universities. And I think he went on to head the economic department at maybe Reykjavik University or another university. The guy was a well-respected economist that used to work for him. And I believe this is his charts, right? He's the one that came up with these. I mean, I'm sure they've tweaked them over the years after he left, but yeah, he would put these charts out with explanations. That guy was amazing.
Carneros helped us out with the name. It is CCP Dr. Irajog. Ejog? Oh, man. We'll put it in the chat.
I guess Carneros would have known him. I think they worked there at the same time.
Yeah, I'll try my best to explain this graph, I guess. So the consumer price index is how much things cost. So how much would you buy, I guess, with each item. But the mineral price index is obviously the cost of minerals, or the average price of each minerals, and then combine however they're gonna do it, the calculation behind it. So we can see the giant spike. So I think that's during scarcity and then scarcity first phase and second phase. So we see some it's not directly up, but it's just staggered in some ways. So yeah, so but right now at the end we're seeing it falling off. I think it started at the beginning of 2021 and then it started going down. I think with the fourth quadrant coming in, it's going to go down more. I don't know if it's going to go back to where it was before, but it's definitely going to go down significantly from now, I think. So the next one is primary producer price index. I think that's the this is just my understanding, is the P1 PIs and those reactions, first-hand reactions, those ships that you make just with only T1 minerals. So those are the primary ones, and the secondary ones will be more refined products, like a capital ship. Instead of a capital ship component, you actually build a ship. So I think that's the secondary ones. And also, so here the key thing I think is that we should look for is a giant difference between mineral price index and the primary producer price index. So with the reduction in the amount of minerals that you need with the industrial change, we are seeing the price of minerals has less of an effect, I would say, compared for the final consumer index and the primary producer index.
Right on. Yeah, you can definitely, like, now that I know what the line means, this yellow line tells me a story. This yellow line tells me a story about the EVE economy early in the years where everything's pretty close together. Then abundance starts coming in, and so minerals are just cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And then something happens in 2012? So it wasn't abundance? What happened in 2012? Why did minerals suddenly become like crazy expensive again? And then that's where we get into like Rorquals Online. They dip below the 100% again, and then scarcity hits and they spike up. I am really curious about what happened in 2012 now. Looking at this graph, if it didn't have the dates down here, I could have sworn this was when abundance was happening, but I guess that's later on here. What happened in 2012? EVE historians, help me out.
War,
We can move on.
war, but I'm trying to remember what change was made. It had to have been a change made to the game, right? Or is that when Plex came out?
Escalation, Inferno 1.0.
Lasted for like 3 or 4 years though, right?
Yeah.
That's a long spike.
And so it was like maintaining this sort of level up until 2018, 2019, into 2020 with Rorquals Online.
They changed back.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was.
Anyway, we haven't seen such a big difference between minerals and primary producer index basically ever, right? We see like a little bit in 2015, 2014, but that's, I would say, reasonable to some degree. But right now, at least with the beginning of 2021, that giant difference there between the orange and the red line is really, really big.
Okay. We're being told by Daniel Plain in chat that battleship mineral costs were increased massively in 2012. So sort of very similar to what happened now when battleship and capital mineral costs got massively increased. Although, no, it wasn't the mineral cost. It was the manufacturing cost with other goods, not just minerals. That's a question I would have.
You needed more minerals to make the ships. And I remember titanium spiked like crazy. And I wasn't a miner, but it almost made me mine, right? It spiked that much. I remember like, it used to be like 1 ISK for maybe like 1.5 ISK for a titanium, right? And it jumped like to 5 for a short period of time, in my opinion. I don't remember how long it was. I remember it jumping. So I think to myself, at that time, I was going to make a capital ship. I was pissed because it cost me so much more to start doing it. I made my first carrier at that point. I was like, God damn it.
Yeah. I trust CCP is probably keeping a close eye on what the mineral price index means and how to interpret it now that a lot of our ships use a significant portion of value from non-standard minerals. But we'll have to keep an eye on and see if they make any changes to what goods are within the baskets for these various categories and how they determine that. Anything else that we want to touch on this graph?
No, I would just say like it would be really nice if CCP can give out like a guidebook of how to interpret or what are the formulas behind each lines, right? I mean, a lot of that we have to guess. With this makes more sense than the other theories, so like it's kind of confusing at times.
I would understand that. I mean, I'm really digging into my memory here from when I studied economics in college, and it was whenever the goods changed in the baskets, there's a trade-off to be made between updating the basket and so you more accurately reflect the consumption properties of your population versus changing the basket and therefore how do you interpret the data now versus the data historically? How do you interpret from an econometrics perspective? Your historical trends may not have any predictive power on your new trends because the makeup of your basket is different. And so there's a trade-off to be made when you're managing what pieces are considered in these, and anytime you make a change. And me personally, I'm very selfish. I'm glad that they don't publish those because the drama over, well, this good is included and this good is not, would just be too much. I can't handle it. The community is too snarky and too uptight about their particulars for CCP to publish that data.
And it's is it adjusted for inflation or not? Things like that. You're right. I don't want to know that. I don't want anybody else to know that either, because that's exactly all it would cause is more, not division, but you'd have those groups. We all know we all have their those groups, people bitching about stuff to bitch. Everybody's in their group. They have that couple guys like they'll bitch about anything for the sake of bitching, right? Don't give them fuel. I'm glad they don't. So, well, I guess we can move on. Just a couple little things we can mention here. Recent allies are doing a little fighting going on. It's like Pandemic Horde and Brave are going at each other a bit out in Jemminit. We witnessed actual structure fighting, not just fighting for fun. Pandemic Horde was hitting some Brave structures out in Jemminit, which kind of sucked because we were going to do that. They beat us to it. So that's interesting to see. I get the reset. That makes sense, but attacking structures is much more than a reset, right? That's that's going to the next step past that. So that was interesting to see that.
Yeah, I mean, typically in friendly reset situations, you have effectively a non-invasion pact where you say, we'll shoot each other, but we're not going to attack any strategically important infrastructure. So Sov and Citadels.
Month, right? This seems really quick for something like this. Usually you got like a grace period, even after a reset. Don't immediately go right at their throat, unless you don't like them. So maybe that's the case here. I don't know. It may be a situation that one group thinks they need to get a win for their players, right? That's important, to get that morale. I've got to get a win. Who are we going to go after? Well, I see these guys as the weak ones. Maybe it's as simple as that. Who knows?
I should point out, like, the only Citadel that died that I can see. Yeah, I'm not seeing any dead Citadels in Jemminate specifically.
They were first timers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I understand.
It wasn't keep stars or anything like that, but they were significant fleets. They weren't 10 guys going at it. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you,
it surprised me a little bit. Honestly, I just didn't. Not a big deal. It happens, but.
We did have some big fights, though, over in the southwest of the map, in Deterid, and I think, Shen, you had info on this one, right? You can walk us through it?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you look at it as of right now, you see Fire and Test on one side, on the left side. You see Imperium plus PIBC plus RC on the other side. And if you look at the is lost on the first hand, you'll see like Imperium and PIBC and RC, we lost like 180 billion or something like that, right? But the actual 140 billion is from the Blood Raiders. That one Sotiyo on ZQ, I think, is about 140 billion. So if you took that away, then its loss is somewhat similar, right? But with the Fire side losing about 10 billion more than the other side.
Don't be throwing facts at their smack talk. Come on.
All right, so digging into this a little bit more, as far as I can tell, Fire Coalition were trying to bash this Sotiyo, right?
Yeah, so they used, I think, 3 revelations there, and all 3 of them died. Of course, yeah, so 3 of them died, and there's also Freighter, who came in to loot the wreck of that Sotiyo. So this time, as at least from what we can see, it didn't drop anything good except for the officer gun or the officer mega beam laser.
So for the members of the audience, yeah, what's the potential?
The potential, you can drop a Moloch, a Chimesh, and the what's the Vax? There's just recent one last. So basically the Blood Raider.
The big toys, yeah.
Yeah, so the Blood Raider BBCs. So that's one thing. And you can also drop officer modules from the Blood Raider faction, I think, and also some faction and Dead Space modules. I don't know about Dead Space, but definitely faction modules. Other than that, I think that's all. But for the reason why they prepped a freighter for bringing all this is if it drops, let's say, a Moloch BPC, then it's going to be locked in a cache. You can only be unlocked in a citadel or a structure or station, right? That means that cache is really, really big, and only, I think, a freighter can carry them and move them around. That's why you see a freighter here. I think that's what they were preparing to do, but at the end of the day, it only dropped one gun. That's it. There's no other big stuff.
Fair enough.
But that Sotiyo is basically the catalyst of this whole fight, right?
Yeah. So basically you can see the middle or the one to the right weighted all those lines is weighted for the Sotiyo to die until I think the freighter warped on grid, and then they started to attack Fire. And Fire, I think, formed a response fleet to deal with this, and it basically things started to escalate, and then we see a fight that's just with the two sides losing. It's about 100 billion in total.
You know, I think the details are a little off on the timeline there, because the Sotiyo didn't die until after both sides had lost significant numbers of hacks. So I'm not sure how or why that happened. Maybe there was a fight happening off grid that sort of migrated on grid with this thing.
But control system maybe. So they get
but how that explains the freighter dying though?
I mean, you're still going to try and extract the loot.
Gunfight, yeah.
What? Like
somebody brought a freighter to a gunfight. I mean, it shouldn't have been there yet, right? That's basically what it boils down to.
Yeah, you see the Sotiyo died, and right after that, the Fernier died, right? So I think that Fernier has to be there, like when the thing's in like really low structure, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't warp something like that on grid.
I wonder if I look at these kill mails if they're at a different location from where the Sotiyo was. So this one just says the system. It doesn't give me the specific, like, by Stargate XYZ, which is unfortunate.
If you pull up a couple of the Z-Kill, they will, though, right? The individual kill mails will show it on Z-Kill, if they're by a gate or if they're by whatever. Right? Doesn't it? I'm pretty sure that gives you that.
All right, let's take a look. Because what I'm imagining may have happened is you had the hack fleets on a gate. So if I know my alliance mates are trying to harvest these valuable resources on this final timer and other people are likely to come and contest me, I will set up on an end gate if I can, so that I prevent the fight from happening on this grid with the Sotiyo, whose rats can just kill things from both sides. So ideally, that's what I would want to do if I were planning out this fleet. So these guys were at planet 6 Moon 30. Where was the Sotiyo itself? I don't know how I could find it. Or maybe I can't.
I just checked. It should be in similar places.
They should be in the same place?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, who knows why that freighter pilot decided to warp in. Maybe he's just trying to loss aversion kicking in, trying to extract what wealth that he could from the wreck.
What's the new high-speed? It's the new high-speed theft thing, right? Because they can warp out real fast and align real fast.
Fair enough.
Yeah, okay. So if you actually check a few of the earlier kill mails, I think they're at a gate in 46 DP Tech O. They're caught on a gate, while the other side is trying to finish up. While I think the fire
the
dreads are trying to finish up. Yeah, and then basically as soon as that thing died, RC, PIBZ, and Imperium warped on grid and killed that freighter. Yeah.
Good call. And
that makes more sense compared to randomly warping in a freighter.
Yeah.
This Sotiyo actually was very successful. It did exactly what CCP originally said they wanted these things to do, cause content, and it did. But not only its own content, but it caused a big fight between a bunch of different groups, involved in this. I like when things work. And to me, this is what was intended for these kind of things by CCP. They wanted something that you could do for fun and could possibly create content. Not guaranteed to, but possibly could, yeah. Good job, CCP. I'll give this a win for CCP.
I agree.
Win for the Imperium
Yeah, I mean,
last night was a Keepstar kill. I just want to point that out.
yeah, I think
Highly
this kind of thing
contested
was
Keepstar, right? I mean, they defended the shit out of that thing. Yeah. Oh, no, they didn't. Because why would you?
yeah. I think with that, it also shows like a lot of times you need a reason or a timer to fight. You see, structure timers is one of them. If people don't blue ball, it's like a real legitimate, strategic, important structure. There's going to be a big fight out of it. You see this kind of like Blood Raider or Grista Sotios, NPC Sotios in NoSec, in NoSec, in LowSec, that people can fight over, right? You see, I think those things are really, really good for what I would call like organized fighting instead of just like a random Titan got caught and then just people dropping in. It's like not prepared and it's kind of like rushed over.
So those have happened, right? Accidental fights have turned into massive fights. An accidental jump turns into that happens. But fights over strategic, whether it's a structure, whether it's value, whether it's a system or a gate, that's the more likely catalyst for a large fight. Something that actually has strategic value. Strategic value is defined differently by everybody. Each side has a different way for them defining that. But there are more big fights over strategic value than there are these big fights that are random. Right? Now, the random big fights, they're fun to talk about because they're anomalies. They're not the normal thing, and they make the news because they're anomalies and things like that. And what 3 of them have turned into, well, until M2, record-breaking fights. So it's good that both those happen, but strategic fights and like this NPC Sotiyo is a strategic, has strategic value because there's a lot of value to it. And it makes sense that a fight can occur over these.
Yeah.
I mean, it will. I mean, it can, right? There's like a good example is a strategic fight happened over that Sotiyo. Has nothing to do with Sov, has nothing to do with controlling a region or anything like that. But it happened, right? A pretty decent sized fight over it, where a Keepstar is a strategic item, right? There was no fight over it because it didn't have actual strategic value to the people who owned it. You're not going to defend something you don't in an area you're not going to use. So it works both ways. These strategic items can cause big fights. They might not cause big fights. And that's the way the game should work. Nothing should ever always cause it. Nothing should ever never cause it, right? This is an example of how the game's actually working.
Yeah, and also with timers, it can be big or it can be small, right? M2 is over an armor timer of a Keepstar, right? So that's a timer that both sides somewhat prepared, I would say, and then they just started dropping in.
Yeah, I mean, it was important. You got to draw a line somewhere. It happens, right? You draw lines, and you got to do that. But I think that's all I got on my list. You got anything more, Shen? You want to talk about?
I think that's all we have for today, right? I think we have a quick survey at the end.
Oh, we forgot about the survey.
Forgot about that.
Okay, so we were inspired partially just by whatever happens to be going on in DomanarK's brain, but then also we saw that the GMs coming up tomorrow on the 22nd at 1400, they're going to be doing live replies to Eve's Steam reviews, which sounds hilarious. You should check that out. We're not doing that. Instead, what we're doing is like a newspaper advice column type thing. So if you have a question, you'd like some advice on how to deal with the corpmate who you're not sure if they notice you or not, but you really would like them to notice you, or something of that description, then we'll have a link that we'll put in the description on the YouTube video and we'll throw in chat now. That you
we
can
are
just
experts at this, just so you know.
send us a question. Yep.
I'm a expert, so if you got any of those kind of questions, I've got degrees. I can't show them to you, but they exist.
Yeah, they're hanging on the wall behind the green screen.
Behind the green screen, exactly. Yeah. So any question you have, if you want advice about something in Eve, ask it. You'll get the best advice you possibly ever get. Probably the most accurate information you can ever get. That's all I do.
Yeah, we can't guarantee we'll answer everything because there are probably going to be too many questions and there are also probably too many trolls. But we'll see what we can do, and we'll answer some questions next week.
Here, I'll throw this out to you. You could try to troll us, but I could almost guarantee you I'll be able to troll you back. You know, we'll post that forum thing everywhere. We'll try to get that out there. We'll see how this goes. And if no one sends anything in, obviously we won't do it. Actually, we will, because I'm going to put a whole bunch in there for myself. I'm just going to throw them in there just to make it funny. And my actual, what do you call it, my muse, or my, the reason I thought of this was I recently been listening to a stupid podcast called My Brother, and Me. It's three brothers, and it's a advice show that they get dumb questions, I mean, just crazy ass questions, and they go off the rails. It's a lot of fun. It's very funny. So hopefully we can have some fun with this, because this is a game. We all should be having fun here, right? Everybody gets all serious and stuff, and I get serious too. Yeah, sometimes, not very often. This is about having fun. So let's have some fun.
Right on.
That being said, thanks for joining us. You guys have a great night. And somebody will be hosting tomorrow night. I don't know who's hosting tomorrow. Sorry.